Alright, so Assassin's Creed Black Flag is in my top 10 games of all time. It's at number 7. And so obviously when I heard they were basically doing a Black Flag remake, I was probably going to get the game regardless, so long as Ubisoft didn't just royally screw up. It looks to be mostly a faithful adaptation with a couple of improvements here and there from some of the more outdated systems. But I really just want to use this video to say it is finally good to see Ubisoft getting back on track, at least somewhat. I understand this is a remake or a resynced, whatever you really want to call it. It's basically the same thing. It's still good to see Ubisoft is getting back on track to understanding what players actually want. And I feel like this is a good first step, because to me, the Ubisoft golden era is like, I want to say like 2012 to 2015, we'll say, where games like Assassin's Creed Black Flag came out, Far Cry 3, which is also one of my favorite games of all time as well, and Splinter Cell Blacklist. These games, they were purely made, at least to me, for like the fun factor, unlike today where everything's about profit margins and how many microtransactions they can stuff into a game that really should function without them. Like for me, I've never been a huge fan of Ubisoft games, but again, when you compare those older games like I just mentioned to games of like modern Ubisoft, so we'll say like 2020 and above, like I want to say like 2015 to 2020, they were still somewhat releasing pretty good games, but it started to show signs of repetitive, like very formulaic nature in terms of like their game design. But from 2020 onwards, their games just completely took over in terms of like the bland style of open world games and just like stuffing them full of microtransactions. And it was games like Far Cry 6. I mean, just some of the most bland game design I've ever seen in the game. And even for me, I was able to play Far Cry 6 for free, and I only played it for like 2 hours, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. The same could be said for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which is somehow turned a once very serious contender in the tactical shooter genre into this sort of like just looter shooter, or at least something close to that. But then there's much more recent examples like Star Wars Outlaws, which if you remember, people were actually excited for it, at least a little bit. Like people said that it looked pretty decent when it was revealed. And if you see these comments, like these are real comments, people were excited for it, but they were still cautiously optimistic because again, it's Ubisoft. And even that game ended up disappointing a lot of people. And to me, I wasn't surprised, because when you have a company that's just so thirsty to catering to their shareholders that they release a game that's just buggy, it is not generally performing well, and a game that also it has some hilariously bad enemy AI behavior, some of the worst since like Cyberpunk 2077. Like this has been the trademark for Ubisoft in the last 5 to 7 years. And that's not even to mention their god-awful NFT card games and crypto games that they were gonna release, but then they sort of reeled it back when they realized they just really fucked up on all that stuff, and they were like, actually this isn't the direction we need to go in. But yeah, like I said, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resync seems to be somewhat a small return to form for them. Like everything that I've seen in the gameplay showcase was a faithful adaptation to the original game. Like I think that the changes they did make, again, in terms of like fixing things or tweaking some things that were like very tedious or annoying bits of the game, like the stealth sections. I know that people like to be very elitist about remasters and remakes, and they're like, if you're going to do it, you may as well make it basically a carbon copy of the original, but just with upgraded textures and graphics and stuff. I don't get that stance. Honestly, if you can remove some of the more tedious and annoyances from what the game had back then to me, I'm all for that. Like even the combat, it looks way more fluid and more, I don't know, modern, which I think is a positive. I didn't mind the combat of Assassin's Creed Black Flag back then, but it still felt very like 1, 2, 3, and every enemy would wait their turn. I think that the combat and the stealth improvements will be most beneficial to new players, because a lot of new players, they don't go back and play older games because of how clunky they are at times. I fully believe that a lot of players are okay with older graphics now, especially seeing as a lot of these newer games, they look a lot better, but honestly they run 10 times worse than games from a decade ago. I feel like the tide has sort of shifted, and people are now more like, nah, just give me a game with a good story, great feeling combat, some badass characters like Edward Kenway and Blackbeard. And even if the graphics are subpar, like I don't really care about that anymore. But in saying that, not everything has to be touched up or tweaked or whatever. Some things genuinely could just be left as they were, such as like the parkour. I think that the parkour looks the exact same, if a bit smoother in transition. And yeah, I don't really think that the movement tech of the parkour needed much of a rework, so it's good to see that this was mostly left untouched. What's also good to see is that they didn't add any unnecessary gameplay systems like skill trees or branches, because again, with a lot of these modern Ubisoft games, or even more so modern Assassin's Creed games, they went the way of like going overboard with power scaling and abilities. The stealth and assassination of Assassin's Creed games should always feel like they're feature based, like the crowd blending or distraction techniques like whistling, or even tools like smoke bombs and darts. To me, it should never be a system of like minus 4.5% visibility at range. Like or whatever kind of nonsense they usually add into their later entries. The only real changes they made to the upgrade systems was like the additions of these 3 shipped officers that you can unlock unique upgrades for your jackdaw after completing their quest line. For me, I've always been a supporter of upgrade paths through quest lines or side missions. It adds a lot more depth and meaning to like exploration when you have a path to upgrade that isn't just tied to leveling and rather is tied to like material gathering or missions and activities. So yeah, overall, just in terms of like the gameplay, like the combat, the stealth, the parkour of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, they changed quite a bit, I feel like, but what they did change was a necessary change in order to make the game feel more modern. Something I instantly latched onto was that they didn't really change the character faces or like the facial models, besides, I guess, modernizing them, if that's even a word. But a lot of times these studios, they'll just straight up change the character to an entirely different person. Take the base Spider-Man PS4 and compare that to Spider-Man PS5, for example. That nigga does not look like the same person. That's a whole different person. To me, it's usually worse with women in games, but this is by far the worst example of it. To me, it mostly just looks like they sharpened the textures and improved the lighting of the faces and the facial animations and stuff like that, and they didn't actually change the facial model. Like Edward, he still embodies this like gruff, like very snarky personality, actually a lot more so in the resynced version. Blackbeard to me still looks like the rough and gruff badass that he was in the original as well. And also Anne Bonny, she still looks like a baddie. Like, let's not lie, all of us who were playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag back in the day, I mean, we were crushing on Anne Bonny. Let's not cap. But yeah, I'm not going to drag this video out too long. It's not going to be a full breakdown kind of video. I just want to say that like, it looks good from what I've seen. I don't feel the need to constantly break down and rip apart and poke holes into stuff that's not there. Like, it looks, at least from what we've seen, a faithful adaptation of the original Black Flag. And coming from Ubisoft, like, I didn't expect that. I'm not gonna lie, like, I expected some bullshit to be thrown in there, like, again, like skill trees or something. Or maybe the facial models are gonna be all messed up. Or maybe the addition of a leveling system with XP boosters and all that nonsense. You know, just like stuff that just plagues modern Ubisoft games. That is the reason why I really haven't touched them for the last like 4 or 5 years. But I'm glad to see that this basically looks like a faithful remake, and hopefully this will finally be the turning point for Ubisoft, because over the last like 5 to 6 years, they've been the primary laughingstock of the gaming industry. They've well overtaken EA. Like, it looks like with this one, they did a really good job with it. But honestly, it's not that hard to. Like, Black Flag was already an amazing game. You had to have royally fucked up to make people hate the Black Flag remake. But you know what? They got to start somewhere. And hopefully this is the start of them turning the ship around and starting to release really good games again, and really good Assassin's Creed games at that. But yeah, as always, let me know what y'all think about Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced in the comments below. Am I being too overly positive? Is there something I'm overlooking? Because again, this is Ubisoft. It could come out with some horrible performance. We don't know what the game actually plays like and how it runs. So you know, that's always something to be cautious about. But barring something like that, like a disastrous performance at launch, overall, this just looked really good to me, and I'm excited to get into it. But yeah, anyways, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.